But don't worry, we will keep you across the scores and see how they're moving throughout the afternoon. But the juniors start us off. Let's head over to Steve Cram for the junior men to start us.
Well, the junior men's race contained a pre-race favourite, Alex Yee, and Alex won this race last year, and he went to the European cross-country championships as the favourite. Sadly fell and was almost, well, he almost tried to get up and then ran over again, and he still got up, picked himself up and finished 11th at those championships. So everybody was looking towards Alex Yee to see if he could make up for that disappointment back in December at those championships, and he certainly started off with real intent. So teams from Europe and the USA, Europe wearing blue with orange shorts, and the USA in all blue, Great Britain in their familiar British strip. And then once things settled down a little bit, certainly as far as the team competition was concerned, there wasn't much to choose. The Brits were very well represented. Scott Beattie was up there, and there was one or two problems on the upper section of the course, just slipping and sliding, and Scott Beattie never far from the front. Jonathan Shields was up there giving Alex Yee some support. And the first couple of laps were, to be fair, a little bit pedestrian. And then things started to heat up a little bit after that. And the man who was the first to really break ranks was one of the Americans, which was a little bit of a surprise because, as I said, Alex Yee, who's a brilliant talent at triathlon and in endurance running, was expected to try and force things on a little bit, but he has been suffering from a little bit of a cold over Christmas and New Year, and it was the American Noah Affolter, who was the first to put his foot down, and as soon as he did that, Alex Yee started to struggle, and you can see him in the picture right at the back there, quickly went to the back, so it was left to Scott Beattie to try and hang on to the American. He was being followed by Miguel Gonzalez, who finished in the top 10 at the European Junior Championships. And then this tricky little section, they don't go up quite as high as they used to around here, but there's one or two twists and turns, and you just have to be a little bit careful about where you put your feet, and there is a stream that the athletes cross over, proper cross-country section on the other side of the road here. And on the third lap, as they were coming down here, Folder was leading, as he had done for the last kilometre or so. Scott Beattie right up there, Shields was close by, and just a little bit of, there was lack of concentration or whatever as they were heading down through this section, meant that Scott Beattie just took a tumble, which was a real shame because Scott was looking pretty comfortable at that point. He was quickly on his feet, but sadly it meant that any chance he had of challenging the American had pretty much gone at this point. This is the stream that they cross. One or two others just being careful across there. The American looked strong, and for a little while looked as though he might have it all his own way. Europe giving chase with Worku, and as I said, Gonzalez as they entered the last lap. Great Britain were really struggling to see where their challenge might come from, with Alex Yee right in the back of the field, and that quick tumble for Scott Beattie. Well, the American, well, he's an interesting character. He's run 4.7 for the mile. He's just 17 years of age, and that's pretty good at that age. But we're one of the rumours around is that his grandfather has said, if you ever break 4 minutes, I'll buy you a Porsche. Well, that's pretty good incentive. He didn't have to run that quick here today, but he did have a real tussle on his hands on the last lap, because Gonzalez really did look at one point as though he could give the American a real race, but the American, as he approached there, just despite that little stumble over the stream on the last lap, from there it's less than 200 meters to go. He made his move at the right time, had enough finish as well, didn't even look back once. Gonzalez checking to see if there's anything behind him. Nothing you could do about the American though, so he was rewarded for his front running and a great performance, really strong over the last 150 meters. So Noah Affolter of the USA coming away for the win. Disappointment for the British team that no one was able to challenge really. But USA starting their afternoon off very well indeed. Gonzalez first across the line for Europe, Lundy the next American. The Americans packing really well behind their winner. You can see Beattie there, lost his number, got up and recovered pretty well to still finish the first British athlete across the line in 8th place. Full result then for you, a good 5-second victory for the American, and as I said, they packed really well behind him. They nearly got all of their athletes right up there in the top 8 or 9. And the points are important. So total for them was 17, 4 to count in this race. Europe had 20, and Great Britain with 42. That means they've got a real challenge on to close that gap in the races to follow.
Well, I have with me the winner of the men's junior international elite race, Noah Affolter. Congratulations. It looked like a tough race, but you had it in the bag from quite early out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that there's some really fast kids from all over Europe and all over the country, really. And I just wanted to represent our country well and show people that I deserve to be here.
And for Team USA, what a great start.
Yeah, we have an amazing group of guys. I've raced every single one of them back in the U.S. before, so I knew them very well. And we came out here, felt great coming out, and I think we just put it together today.
In the junior women's race, as with the men's initially, Great Britain looked as though they had the pre-race favourite in Harriet Knowles-Jones. Harriet, again, coming away with an individual medal from the recent European cross-country championships. It's always a little bit of an unknown quantity to see what you're going to face from the American team, and having seen the performance of the American men, the junior men, then always had to be a little bit wary. So the first lap, there was a pretty big group, and young Amelia Quirk of Great Britain was in there as well. Amelia, again, performed really well. Just turned 17, the diminutive figure at the back of that lead group. And Harriet just hung around for a little bit just to check, I think, whether or not there was going to be any real challenge. Shorter race for the junior women was 4 kilometres. They had one short lap of a kilometre and then went out on the 2 big laps. Harriet, very, very strong. And Paula, just to bring you in on Harriet, it was a great performance at European Championships, and she comes from, of course, great endurance stock. Mum and Dad, both international athletes, and she ran a canny race today.
She did. I mean, she's definitely from a cross-country background as well as great running stock. Her dad, Martin Jones, figured in several World Cross teams, maybe even the one that won a bronze medal back in 1992. And so she knows all about cross-country running. She had a great run in the European cross-country, and she seems to have trained really well over Christmas and come here with a definite intention to go out and make everybody else work very hard.
Well, after the first lap, you could see the way the teams were sitting, and Great Britain had a little bit of work to do at that point. The USA had started off with real intent, put all of their junior women had started off pretty quickly, but they were to pay for that a little bit as 2-3 the other British athletes moved through the field nicely. It said Amelia Quirk was always in that chasing group, but Harriet Knowles-Jones pretty much had it to herself on the last lap, and that gap just got bigger and bigger. Really good, strong, solid performance, a good piece of front running. Lau, who performed well at the European Cross Country Championships, and some thought maybe could be a little bit closer to Harriet Knowles-Jones. She wasn't that far behind, I think only 5 seconds behind her in the European Championships, but she was nowhere, was content to sit with that chasing group, in which she had a couple of compatriots from Europe, a couple of Americans were in there, but Harriet never headed. And you can see there on the second lap, it was much closer as far as the team competition was concerned. And just to reiterate the fact that it's the points that add up when we have the senior women and the senior men to come. It's the total points that will determine who wins this team challenge. Nothing Harriet can do really about what's going on behind her, just stuck to her task really well. Only thing you really need to do then, and particularly on this tricky section, is to make sure nothing silly happens. And as Paula was saying, she's a good exponent of the cross-country art, maybe taking it a little easy over there, and then she could coast down to the finish. Again, one of our bright young talents, and when you look at the people who've won this, Emilia Goretzka and Bobby Clay, both of whom are going on, we hope to have good senior careers as well. I think Emilia's getting back into some sort of shape after 1 or 2 injury problems, but Harriet Knowles-Jones, clear winner, giving Great Britain their first victory in terms of the team competition, individually anyway, and she would be able to turn round and see a real good battle going on behind in terms of the minor places. But Amelia Quirk did really well and came across the line in 4th place, and that meant that Great Britain and the USA were in a right tussle, and we had to wait for the 4th counter to get across the line. I'll tidy up the results for you in a minute, but it was very, very close indeed. Some quite big gaps there, and even though it's only 4 kilometres, Harriet Knowles-Jones managed to put a good, well, you can see there, 10 seconds between herself and the second-placed athlete, Lau.
USA have got 3 across the line already. Europe have got 2, GB got 2. Here comes TV's next 3 runners, led across the line by Victoria Weir, just followed by Phoebe Barker.
13:56, the winning time. Lau 10 seconds behind. As I said, Moreno came through for a good 3rd place ahead of Amelia Quirk. And the USA with 4 in the top 8. That meant they just pipped Great Britain by 1 point, 23 to 24, with Europe on 34.
The winner of the Junior International Women's Race, Harriet Knowles-Jones, is with me now. Congratulations. That all went to plan very nicely.
Yeah, completely. I've been talking about it with my coach since Europeans. We knew I was strong enough, so it was just sit in and see how the pace goes and then push on the last lap. And yeah, I made a move on the hills over there, which I thought was a bit early, but it pulled off. Yeah, I had good teams strong behind me. I knew Amelia finished really high up. So we had amazing support. My whole family's here, 18 of them. So they really helped, yeah.
That's not her family, that's the winning American team who won by just that 1 point. Well, let's add all those points together from the junior men, and this is how they set up before we go into the senior women's race. USA with a pretty good lead there, certainly over Europe, 54, and 26 points behind Great Britain in 3rd.